evolved the Oak Island universe is that type of person. You guys, I can tell, you're that type of person. You hear a story like this, you latch onto it like a dog, and you're just like, let's go. And yes, it's frustrating. And yes, you want it to be solved tomorrow. And yes, who doesn't want to find a chest of gold? Of course we do. Of course, everyone does. But it doesn't work like that sometimes. These things are hard. And so it's taking what it's taking. And that is, in this case, 10 years.
Right. How does it affect us in changing of the history, or getting down to the nitty-gritty of the history?
It won't change history. It will explain.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. That's what I was
it will explain parts of North American history you've never thought about.
See, I can't. The History Channel could not have come up with a better teaser than we just did right here. So I tell you what, stay tuned, folks, because this is going to be a good one. I can't wait.
This is Robert Clotworthy, the narrator of The Curse of Oak Island. And I have a question for you. Could it be that you are listening to The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream?
This is a top pocket find, mate, for sure.
Hey everybody, Jeff here with the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream, and there is tonight's co-host, Tom Burns. Tom, how you doing?
Great, thanks very much.
Hey, all right, man, we got quite a crowd already here tonight. Let's see. Oh my gosh, yeah, quite a few people here. Sure, thanks you guys for coming by here tonight. Let's see. I can't even get to the top of this thing.
I was just saying, try to scroll back up through. You can't get there.
Can't get to the top of it.
Okay. Everybody sign back off, sign back on again so we can see who you have.
Yes, we can see who. Paula's here. Hey, Paula. Kat here. Hi, Kat. Oh, my gosh. Let's see. Who else we got? Wade is here. Jeff's in the house. Let's see. Jamie. Hi, Jamie. From Houston, Texas. And let's. Oh, yeah. I see. Jeff is Tucson. Oh, you see the hat I'm wearing tonight? It's not really cold in here. I actually got a little fire going back there. I'm back in the out in the living room. Robot's here. Jim Barlow's here. Soggy, Tennessee.
Yep. Sharon's here from Maine. Michelle's here. Barbara Duncan. Henry. Jeff Babineau. Jan. Jack Campbell in the house. There's my man, Jack.
Yep. Seguala Pioneer.
Yep.
Linda is out there working, and so is Jan. And Jan did another awesome job on the synopsis this week. Appreciate that so very, very
Can't leave home without it.
No, can't leave home. Can't do a show without it. Jackie's here. Yeah, Jim Barlow. Gosh, thank you guys for everybody showing up here. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I had to show off my hat. Oak Island, Nova Scotia. That's one of my Christmas presents I got there. I love it.
They work even better when you're outdoors.
Yeah, I know. I could have put on. I got my my Uper. Uper hat back there. I could have put that on, I guess. But hey, Eva's here. Keith's here. Curtis is here. Jan is here, of course. Cheryl's here. Wow, thank you guys. Wig is here. Laura Girl. Indy's Antics. All right, Dave. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
He's there. Yeah.
Yep.
Holy jumping.
Ray. Allegedly Annie. I like that. I like that name. That's really cool. Mark. Oh man, a lot of people showing up. Thank you guys for all kind. David's here. Gosh, appreciate you guys all coming by here tonight. And anyway, to join us for this would be season 10, episode number 5. Duc It Out. Duc It Out. Another good name that I came up with.
Yep. Or the Duke is out.
Duke, yeah, or the Duke is out. Then that's a really good, we'll dig into that a little bit as we go along tonight. But that whole thing with Duc D'Anville, there's been other researchers have come up with this same line. And I guess if you, I know Court's talked about it, and so has, of course, Corjan. There's been quite a few different researchers have talked about Duc D'Anville. And of course, Doug Crowell, brought it up, and we'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. Him working with that particular ship's log that he had translated, or
something 1740 to 17 call it 60 range.
Right. You know, and that's
Down
the
there.
interesting thing too, as we go along here tonight, there has been so many different people, or so many, I should say, so many different things that they have found on the island are all, quite a few of them fall within that range of the mid 1700s. You know, we always want to say that you know, I mean, there are parts of Oak Island, i.e., the platform, the stone platform that's, you know, Dr. Spooner went and found that piece of wood in there that was crushed inside there. And you know, Jack and I talked about that some time ago, but talking about that piece of wood being dated to the 1200s. So we know that their dates go back that far with people were doing something on Oak Island.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. But quite a bit of the time we're finding in that mid 1700 range, you know, is that where either A, something was deposited, or B, something was removed from.
If you go back and look at that 1740, 1760 range around Nova Scotia between the British and just the British and the French, with Fort Louisburg and, you know, before actually it was called Halifax, but Halifax, up around the other side of the Bay of Fundy with Annapolis Royal or Port Royal or, you know, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the British and the French were so active. I mean, the next thing they would have had to do was put like rotary traffic in or something, right? Like,
Yeah,
they were like, it was a beehive of activity with the different fleets coming over, different sieges at Louisburg. I mean, there was a lot happening.
Yep. Let's see. Ray says, if you believe the Knights Templar Portuguese Knights of Christ Depositors 14, then the French connection for the 1700s have to be searchers or withdrawers. That's kind of what we were just talking about. Or I, you know, was saying if something was deposited that many years ago, then if something was happening in the mid 1700s, was that being taken out?
Yeah.
But then you got the guys finding the depression in the ground, if that's really how the story went down, finding a depression in the ground and started digging in this hole, you know, finding the different levels of the money pit in 1795. They wouldn't have been there that many years after somebody had been there.
Well, then the other side of that coin is that if they were using past knowledge that's been passed down over the centuries as a good place to hide something, you weren't necessarily searching or withdrawing, right? When the Duke came over, he could have been using knowledge passed down over the centuries as this is a good place to hide stuff.
Yep.
So it could have been any one of those three things, really.
Yep. And I still kind of look at courts, you know, talking about the war and how anything that might have been taken from there was used to fund the war. So, I mean, I don't know, man. There's so many questions that have to be answered. And again, we talk about that. Maddie talked about it. Would we love to see a chest of gold come up out of there? Yes, we would. But I want answers. There's too many questions out there that have to be answered. And
I think this tunnel is going to give us some answers.
I think so.
Because it's, as they described it, as being in situ in places at top and on the bottom, which means it's an original tunnel from somewhere. Somebody was going somewhere to do something. They got to have left something behind in that tunnel that's going to tell us something.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, well, obviously they have left something behind, a lot of wood.
Oh yeah.
But somebody mentioned something the other day too, and they was talking about the content of the gold and silver in the water. With that much content of gold and silver in the water, it would almost have to still be there. Now we've talked about, currents and things like that, but as you pointed out earlier, there's
no, something causes it to be there.
Yeah, exactly. So is it still, I mean, would the remnant of gold and silver still be in the water if it had been removed in the mid 1700s?
I can't imagine it.
I can't
imagine the water being that stale that long.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I don't know. Yeah, a lot of good theories out there. I see robots talking the 1713, the treaties. Yeah. English at last time. Yeah, there's a lot of good information out there. We got to get to the bottom of this. I mean, they just have to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and it thinks about, who's burying what on whose soil. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you're running a covert operation, you're going to bury it wherever you want anyway. Doesn't matter whose soil it is.
Exactly.
And they did run, and they did run covert operations, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We know that they did.
I mean, we got evidence of that tonight.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. Yep. I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking of something else the British had done, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we speculated so many times about how, or I have, I guess. I won't throw you guys into this speculation part of it with me, but talking about the fact that, the military records would have to talk about what the French were doing there, what the English were doing there, or the British were doing there in Nova Scotia, Mahone Bay. There has to be some record of it someplace, and unfortunately, nobody has dug any of that up yet. So, I don't know.
Or it was never there.
Or it was never there. Yeah, could be.
As Corjan said last night, right? The gaps were there.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's dive into it. Episode number 5, Duke It Out. We start off with right off the bat, we go right to the money pit. And primarily talking about the garden shaft. As Rick rolls up there, he immediately comes in contact with Paul Coate, and Paul takes him over to the garden shaft that the guys are refurbishing the top of. And there's a shot of it there. Really nice. I mean, and you and I pointed out, we're talking a little bit in the pre-show. There they are walking over to it, and there's Dumas's trailer and all that kind of stuff happening. This right here. I mean, some of those beams that they're using down there, but you pointed out a very good point about all of this. And that picture right there tells you.
Yep. They're trying to, when they first said refurbish it, I wondered what they meant originally by refurbish, but they're marrying up the woods. Like they're saving as much of that garden shaft as they can possibly save.
Yep.
Rather than build around it, tear it out, build inside it, build outside it, they are actually refurbishing the garden shaft.
Yeah. That to me is so cool. It really truly is, because like you just said, they went down to the top we saw in a couple episodes ago. We saw the top of it, the part that was exposed to the air, where it was all, the wood had been kind of broken off or worn off or whatever on the tops of the board sticking up, was all, like this, going. Well, they've had to remove some of that, of course, get down to the next layer that was solid. You see it right there in this picture.
Yep.
And then building it up from there and matching it just like what they had done originally. And
They're going to make
this
so cool. This is a permanent structure that will be there forever.
Yep.
As far as even the ladder, you see the ladder there? They could have stuck an aluminum ladder in there, right?
Yeah.
But no, they're refurbishing it. They're making it back as it was.
Yep. I love that. I absolutely love it. I think that is such a neat way to do it. And then we talked about this stuff right here. DMXAG, that they're wrapping around the outside. Now, obviously, they didn't have that back in the day. They had blue clay?
Yeah, they couldn't find any blue clay. Probably they had to use that.
Yeah, because they already took it all out of the eye of the swamp. They already took all the blue clay out. So, these guys didn't have any to use. So they had to go to the modern technique of using this slab. Now, this is the kind of stuff that you see wrapped around a basement. I think we were talking
about foundation. Yeah, it wicks the water away from the wall. Yeah.
Yep. It keeps it from being able to seep into the concrete or whatever, or wood in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do know that part of it is, blue clay down below.
Oh yeah.
But I just think this is so cool. Let's see. Oh, Keith was asking.
And they were giving themselves a 6-week time frame to do that. To get that top of that well ready, the top of the garden shaft ready, right, and get it refurbished. Right, they're giving themselves 6 weeks to do that. So
yeah, I'm gonna bring up real quick, and I know this. I am amiss here because I did not bring up. I'm gonna not talk for a second because it's gonna repeat my words here. Hold on a sec. There we go. Okay. Well, I guess I got him anyway. All right. I
Well,
wanted to be able to
it's like-
see the.
It's another J3 906 first dead air.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to see the chat over here. There we go. So I can see who's saying things over there. And I forgot to bring that up earlier. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
there we go. All right. Let's see.
And Dave says, why not get an ROV down that shaft? Well, I think that they could put an ROV down there, but if it's close enough to when they get that garden shaft done, I think they'll punch an exploratory hole out through there and
Yeah.
go in.
Yep.
But that's speculation.
Now, this was some of the wood that they had taken out, and this wood was all dated back to before. Then they showed this piece of wood on the show. This piece of wood was dated back to before they found the money pit in 1795.
Yeah, that was all early 1700s. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it obviously is not, and that's where we get that distinction, folks. For those of you who haven't watched my show on a regular basis, and I talk about that finding those pieces of wood is extremely important because they can date the wood and get an idea of when the tree was cut down and then used for lumber. And that gives you a better idea. And as Tom has pointed out numerous times, it could be another 20 to 30 years, or depending upon how long the wood lasted after it was cut and the boards were, excuse me, and the boards were created from it, how old it is. But if it's prior to 1795, then it can't be searcher wood, at least not searcher wood since 1795 on that we know of, right? So that's why the finding of the wood is important. Who said that? Let's see. Somebody had a good point here. A lot of people talking about the Duc stuff here. And that's exactly what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit too. Bear with me a moment. Let's see. Oh, that was Jeff Babineau.
Jeff Babineau. Yep.
Yeah. The whole point to the Duc D'Anville expedition was to settle a military base in Halifax so that the French could protect St. Lawrence Seaway and their colony in what is now known as Quebec City. Once that goal was achieved, they were to use the area as a staging point for the French invasion into the 13 colonies. So there you go. More information coming out. There's a lot about this. I mean, it really is, you start getting into this research side of this, and there is so much information out there. Good stuff. Again, another shot that I had picked there real quick of the work being done as he's showing Rick. And then again, at the bottom, once they get down to the bottom, around 80 feet, they were going down 80 feet. And when finished, they will have platforms. And this is something that somebody brought up to me. They made a comment, I think it was on the last week's YouTube show, on the YouTube channel. And he made a point to say, they're doing so much to preserve the structure, the garden shaft, like we just pointed out. Why are they doing it every 8 feet? They were putting the intervals at every 8 feet. Go 10. The original money pit was supposed to be 10 feet, right? So they said, keep it at, why not go 10 and keep it all like that? I don't know. There's something that I thought was kind of funny.
Must be a design thing or a safety thing, probably.
Yeah, probably so. Well, and most of your boards are 8-footers. You can buy 8-footers now and whatever. But yeah. So anyway, I thought that was kind of neat. Now, why not 10? Keep it really the way it was as back then. Now,
if you go with 8-foot sections, it gives you more opportunity to do a breakage or a stoppage too.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Very true. So when they get down to the bottom, they can actually tunnel over and hopefully hit this tunnel that they're following. We'll get to that here in just a few minutes. Then the show jumps over to lot 32. And this is the lot right here. And as we see, and you guys know now, lot 32 encompasses most of the swamp. Well, I say about half of it, I guess it actually looks like, but
it's a good piece of it. Yep.
Yep. And then down along the edge of the coastline, a sliver of land, a small piece that we found out later was granted to Samuel Ball. Thanks for Henry DeWitt. Yep. Brought that up. And the guys are working right down here along this edge is where they're actually doing their work. That's a shot of it there. So that's right along that edge. And of course, the swamp being right over here off screen to the right. You can see where they're working.
Yep.
Right there. And that's where they were finding all those pieces of metal, which I was kind of thinking was a metal scrap heap at some point.
Well, that's the same area that Marty had the backhoe in last week, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That Laird said, go ahead, dig as much fill as you want.
Yeah, exactly. And then they went back and they
take as much fill. I think he said, take as much fill as you want.
Right. Yep.
So he took the fill off the top, whatever he meant by fill.
Yeah.
And then I think now they're in the hole doing the in situ stuff, right?
Yeah. And I don't know that fill. I mean, obviously they know that fill has been, been brought in there.
Oh, look, the rock wall, the whole rock wall, retaining wall been built up there, right? So that's been backfilled with something.
Right. So they had to dig down below that before they got into the good stuff. Oh, okay. Jim said that going by the math, 8-foot sections are about 23 to 25% stronger than 10-foot. There you go. I did not know that. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. That's a good point.
Well, between 8 and 10 feet, there's 20% difference, right? So makes total sense.
Yeah. So that's where they're working, right there in lot 32. And this is the place where they found these pieces last week, or in last week's show. They found these pieces here. That's why I was calling it like a metal dumping ground in that spot. Here they are.
Which makes sense. Which makes sense, though, right? If you've got a bunch of spare metal or scrap metal, back in that day, like you don't go down to the local hardware store. There's no local foundry to go get new metal if you need new metal.
Right.
Right. They're going to keep that metal and they're going to blacksmith it if they need to make something else.
Ooh, getting warm in here.
Right. So they're going to just throw it in one common spot. So they know, oh, I need a piece of metal to make something. I'll go down to this one spot and dig it up or scrounge it up or whatever.
Exactly.
And take it back to their own little smelter and
or and at that point, it probably wasn't deep underground. It was laying on the ground, probably.
Oh, probably laying right there. Yeah.
Yeah, they would go gather up what they needed. Remember all the axe heads that they were finding and stuff. Of course, those were much newer, I think, but they found all those axe heads just up along. It was just north of, well, I say north, actually it would be east of here, going up back towards the swamp. There was an area just off the edge of the swamp where they were finding all those axe heads. Yeah. There's metal detecting in there. So here Marty shows up and he's looking over here. He's talking to Laird. And you got Emma again, right there, and Helen.
And they got Emma out of the office. She's out doing field work.
Yeah, she's actually out doing some field work, which is a good thing, right? Multi-talented lady. So there's Helen, and then we got, this was kind of a cool picture. Some people were kind of up in arms a little bit. I mean, here comes Marty when he shows up and he's carrying something.
Yeah, so, speculation. Yeah,
speculation. At first glance, you're like, "What is that? What's he carrying? Is that dynamite?"
Yeah, come on, Laird. We'll speed the process up a little bit.
Hey, well, Laird said he could, remove the backfill, right?
Take as much fill as you want.
Yeah, take as much fill as you want. Let's bring some dynamite out here. So this one, I don't know how much it's. I know we were talking about it because we're like, "What in the world is he carrying there?" Yeah. Linda said, what's that? She did. She sent us that picture. She said, what is that? What is he carrying there? So of course that started a big, thing. We had to go and look to see what in the world is he carrying. You see the little sticks or wire sticking out of there. So we were all wondering, is he coming over with some dynamite? All right, Laird, we're gonna clear the area. We're gonna blow this thing up. But as it turns out, I believe what they are is little it's like a little garden or I'll call it a heavy duty garden shovel that has like root teeth on the edge. You've seen the one shovel that they have used in the past that has the roots. It has the teeth serrated edge so that it digs the roots out better and cuts them. And that's what this is. I believe that's what these are that he brought over. So they're trowels. You're like a trowel. Yeah, exactly. With serrated edge, I believe. And he brought them over and you see that there's Emma's Emma's got one right there, and she's putting it up on it's got a little sheath over it. That's why I think it's
Yep.
this. There's another one laying over there, and you can see the brown sheath over top of the red handle right there.
Yep.
So that's what I believe they're one of these.
There you go.
things.
A trowel with a cutting edge, really.
Yeah. That's what I think they are.
Mm.
That's my best guess. That's my speculation that they're one of those. So yeah. So that's that kind of explains it. It's not, maybe that's not the actual brand or whatever, but that's what I think they were. No, they're not dynamite, so he's not going to blow up the HO stone again or whatever. The Root Slayer. So as they continue on out there, Gary and Jack are doing some more metal detecting in this area. And they find a few pieces. There's one piece that they find right there.
Yep.
So a Swiss Army shovel. There you go. That's I like that.
Yeah. Swiss Army trowel. Yep.
So they find this piece of metal right here. And you heard that Gary right off the bat said it looked like some sort of a like a band, a barrel band or something like that, or a keg band. There's another closer shot of it. Then they find this little piece right here. And I have to admit, I was at a loss for this. It didn't look like a tool to me. But
yeah, when Gary first said it was a sai, I said, it doesn't remind me of any sai that I've ever seen. But
no, me either. And I've seen.
I haven't seen the sai that's from the 1700s either, so I really wouldn't know.
Yep. So they find these two pieces again. These were the two, at least they showed. And there's another shot of that area where they're working. And of course, there's the road and the swamp. But and they keep talking about a wharf over here. They keep mentioning a wharf. But I hadn't. It must be up a little bit further too. And we talked about this a little bit last week about the wharf. So they find that piece of what Gary thinks is part of a barrel hoop. And they're going to take it over to the research center and let Carmen come and have a look at it. But he felt like it was from the 1700s. And then we go back to the money pit. And I love these overhead shots because you kind of get an idea. Now they've at this point, I think that they have. They might still be working. It looks like this particular picture, they're still working with the table where they bring the samples over, the core samples over so they can get a look at them. And this now, they are working on this particular hole right here, J15.25. Now, why they picked J15.25 and whatever, I don't know. But anyway, that's right in line with
Steve's. Sorry, Steve's making the reading, so we'll take them as true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Steve's readings on his grid. So, but we know M16.25 was down here just a little ways. Then you got L, and then you got K. Now you got J. And they're following this line, and they're following this line because they are following a tunnel, and they need to find out exactly where it goes. And that's what they're doing here. So they came back, even though they popped some of these holes up here. D17 they did last week. Not really sure why, but they needed to come over a little bit. And so they popped in J15.25 to get a look down there. And there's the guys at the table. And of course, they're drilling. And this is something that we talked about a little bit pre-show, is that there's two pieces to this drill. There's the casing that goes down that actually digs down into the dirt. And then I believe, and I'm not an expert on a sonic drill rig, but then they have another piece that goes down inside and pulls the dirt out of that. And that's where they get their core samples. And they get a look at the core sample from that every 10 feet or so when they pull the core samples out. They leave the casing, stays in there until they're done and get to where they're going, and they pull the casings back out. This was where they saw at 16.25 a couple weeks ago. See you, Wig. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. He's got a head out, he says.
Good to go.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting, too. Linda pointed out that Dumas said it's interesting how they said that the top of the opening of the shaft would be the same elevation as the pad. behind where they put the crane. Yeah, the pad. So the pad, the flat area, is going to be the same height as that.
Oh, right.
top of
Yep.
So interesting how that worked out. But this is where they found those pieces of wood in 16.25. They knew they were in some sort of a shaft or a tunnel. I'm sorry, a tunnel in that area, and then they were following it up. So that was the picture they showed there, and here is where they took that sonar reading of that tunnel in 16.25, which is right there, and they were in the elbow of a tunnel, what appears to be a tunnel. Now, to me, it's actually going off in this direction. They got it showing going up this way, but if you follow that line, it actually should be a little bit tilted more toward the west than north. But they're following it towards the garden shaft. So they're going to punch holes all along here and see if they're following the shaft or this tunnel. Why do I keep calling it a shaft? Following the tunnel. And something else that I wanted to note too, that well, they did find wood down there again in this new one. This is J15.25. They did find wood. They did find a void. And situ, I guess the situ is the undisturbed ground, right?
Correct. Yep. So they found, I can't remember if this was one where they found it above the tunnel or below the tunnel, but I think in a couple of different samples, they found it both above and below, which
right
to me just says, look, this is an original undisturbed tunnel from something.
Right. Yep. And then all the sloppy stuff in between.
Yeah. The loose stuff. Yep.
Yeah. All this loose stuff. So they found wood in there. So they decided, okay, that nails it right there. Now this one here, let's see, they were hoping to find something at a depth of 103 feet in the money pit area. They were at 54 feet south of the garden shaft. Twice the team has encountered tunnels which contained wood, and then that's what we're seeing here. Let's see. A core sample brought over from 102.5 feet for the team to examine. They find no wood first, and then they come up with another one that was a little bit deeper. Now they do find wood. So they know that they hit. And they were talking to, and I've forgotten his name now, the main guy that's running the choice drilling rig, did in fact say that there was a void area.
Yep.
So what do? Right off the bat, they go rig up sonar. And they were talking about how it was a good opportunity to put sonar down. So they get the Subsea ISS 360, a sonar device down there. Whoops, that's a picture of the camera. So first they put the sonar device down there, and as they do, they go ahead and they find this right here, which is another tunnel.
Yep. And they're pretty convinced because it's, with the right angles down there, the straight lines, right? They're pretty convinced.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, Steve projects it out to where he thinks it's headed.
Yep. Thank you, Thor. That's exactly what I've been telling him. Put a camera down. Anytime you hit a void, better be putting a camera down there. Anytime. It doesn't matter. I don't care what it is. If you hit an open area, get a camera down that hole. Now we figure that they probably do in most cases, but you see what had to be done. I mean, they set up a whole bunch of stuff here. You got to bring all this equipment out. Choice has to pull all the stuff out of the hole. The casing has to stay there. They got to move out of the way, set up all this equipment over here, the computer and the laptop, the monitor, and get all the stuff over here. Probably takes half a day just to get over here, everything set up over here, I would think, right? So they can come over and take a look. And then put that sonar down, and sure enough, they find a continuation of a tunnel. You got the lines right here and this line right here. This looks like a beam going across, and you got this long line here and then another beam over here. That's a tunnel.
Yep.
I don't care how you look at it. That's got to be a tunnel. Now, the thing that I find interesting about this is now they are J16.25, and I'm going to back up here in just a moment. What I'm thinking is, I'm going to zoom in on this one. I think here, we'll try this one. Okay, so M16.25, then you've got K15.5, and this is where they noticed right here is where it looked like there was maybe some sort of a collapse or something.
That's what I thought. There was a collapse or a cave in. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right about here. Now that's K. Now J, they're punching in right up in here. Okay, right just ahead, just above it a little bit on that side. And when they do, they're seeing, this here. And I think they're on the other side of that collapse now, maybe.
Yeah.
Or in the middle of the collapse. Because you got a lot of stuff showing up here.
Could be.
Then they put the camera down in the hole. And this is the Spectrum 120. Let's see here. Sonar images and asked about a distance from the last sonar images, which were M16.25. That was about 15 feet away. So they're about 15 feet up. Yeah, from where they were. Rick comes over with them too, and then they start finding this down below with the camera. That's awesome.
That's yep. But the one thing you notice about these pictures here is that, so let's call it on day one. Choice is in there. They do their sonic thing, right? Which is going to stir up mud, dirt, debris, silt, whatever, right? It's sonic.
Yep.
They're going to go down. They're going to penetrate the top. They're going to go through the shaft. They're going to penetrate the bottom. They're going to pull that back out. And if those, it doesn't look like there's any current there from when you see the sediment floating down.
Right.
But to have it clear up that much overnight.
Yeah.
To be that crystal clear. I mean, that's a crystal clear picture.
That is a great picture.
And you can see the odd little bit of silt or sediment that's still falling there. There doesn't seem to be a lot of current to clean it out. So, I mean, I don't know. What do people think? Is there a current there? No current there?
I don't know. Yeah. What do you folks think about that? Is that, I mean, I'm looking at that right there, and you brought this in, Tom brought this up, in the pre-show. We were talking about this a little bit, and it's exactly right. It could have been days, but it wasn't. They said tomorrow. When Choice Drilling put that in there, and they hit the void, they said tomorrow morning we're coming back to put a camera down there, or the sonar down there.
Sonar, but no, maybe they waited longer to do the camera. Let it give it a chance to settle.
It's possible. Ray said it could have been days. It's possible. But I'm thinking there's not much current going on in there. We talked about that too. We were speculating about whether or not there would be current down there, or does the tide, the raising and lowering of the tide, does that affect water movement inside the tunnel? If the flood tunnel,
I would bet you that's fresh water.
I'd like
that clear. To be that clear.
Have they said? I don't know if they've said.
No, they didn't say. They didn't say. I would guess fresh water. It's so clear.
Yeah. If it is sealed tunnel due to the collapses, I suspect that there wouldn't be a current. True. If there have been enough collapses to cut off any outside water. Clear water would indicate freshwater source, right? Not a flood tunnel? Possibly. I don't know. That's one part about it. We'll have to ask Ian Spooner about that and see what he says. But yeah. So, if it's and again, like Tom mentioned, when you see that, they were saying, oh, it's still collapsing, and you could see stuff rolling down from the side, and then a little bit of the dust in the water, the sediment in the water, but it was just falling slowly down.
Very slowly. It didn't seem to be being drawn away or pushed away by anything. Not moving very fast if it was, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Who said that? The photo, that's Marilyn said the photo looks clearer than others from past episodes. Yeah, and this was a better camera. Remember the other one they put down had a flashlight taped and zip tied to the bottom of it that they were using. Now they went out and got themselves a good one now.
I think this would be a different section too, right? It's 15 feet away from the other.
Yeah, 15 feet north-northwest of M16.25, which is where they put the other camera down, and then they put this one down.
So
And
the question is, are we looking north there, or are we looking back towards the south?
They didn't say. They didn't indicate that. So I don't know.
And Steve says a view down the tunnel.
Yes.
So what
down
does he
the
mean
tunnel.
by down the tunnel?
Right.
Is that
Yeah,
just
he was
something?
looking
That
over here.
could be just an expression he uses, or is
Yeah,
there an actual
maybe.
tilt or a slope to this tunnel that it goes down and up?
That's a good point. Henry, that was Henry, says that the fact that the bubbles came up in the at the garden shaft and clear photos makes me think that the water is stagnant. Yep.
There's certainly nothing growing in there.
No.
Like if there was any kind of water coming in or out,
Right.
that was allowing any kind of biologic material in and out of there,
Mhm.
you'd think there'd be something. Of course, there's no sunlight to make anything grow. So
Right. But there's still stuff well, yeah, some sunlight does make it through the ocean to have things grow on the bottom. But you're right, there's no sunlight in here at all. But yeah, it truly is a fantastic picture. You can see the wood beam across the top. You can see wood sticking out over here on the side. You can see a wood beam over here on this side. It looks like there's some sort of a beam right here.
looks like a post there with almost a rock or something on top of it. To
Yeah,
hold the
like
beam
a
up.
rock or something. That's what I thought too. Oh, they're using a rock to hold it up. That's not cool. Yeah, hard to say what was going on with that right there. But yeah, this is an absolute awesome picture. And you can see that it is a partial collapse. So it is filling up the tunnel to some degree. But I don't know. What do you guys what do you all in the chat? What do you guys think about this right here? So you have M16.25 clearly in a tunnel. They sonared it. You could see it going off in both directions. Now they go here at J15.25 and they put a camera down and they see this. And again, I'm making the assumption that it is looking to the northwest towards the garden shaft. I'm going to back up for just a second and look at one other thing here.
And Dave makes a good point. He said the dirt piles look very much like they just dropped from the ceiling.
Yes.
It just eventually worked their way down there.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. I did send you the email. You should have it. You might have to. I don't know if you can, so you can put up chat if you want. I did it just before the show, but
okay, I missed it.
One thing that I was thinking about here. Look at this picture again, and assuming that this is where they put the camera down and the sonar down right here in the center of this picture, of course, right? So you see this beam right here going across. I think that is this beam right here. And again, I'm guessing. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just guessing, but I think it's this beam right here. So, if it is that beam right there, are we then looking south? And that's the problem that we won't know until we get Steve on the show. But if you're looking at this beam right here, it's right next to the hole, right next to the pipe, and it's going across right here. Looking the other direction, there's another one down here. But I don't ever see them looking that way. I mean, we didn't see many pictures of them looking.
They started off with the camera in one spot and they almost had to get around to 360 before they actually saw anything, right?
Right.
That would show them any kind of depth.
Right. So we
don't know if they actually got all 360 either, because once they hit that one spot, Steve said, "Whoa, stop."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know from this picture right here if it's looking north, if this now they made it go this way, and I made the assumption in my head that that's the one going towards the garden shaft going this direction. But I don't know.
That's my assumption too.
That's exactly what oh. Okay. I was just reading Linda was sending over there, but
oh yeah.
So I was making the assumption that it was going that direction, but I'm looking at that beam that's right there by the camera, And I'm making a guess that it's that beam right there. Offset chamber? I think there might be. With the fact that they were the holes that are being punched in up closer towards the garden shaft, they're finding they're hitting wood in a void at what, 50,
Yeah.
55 feet?
So, how far away do you think we are from the garden shaft there, physically?
Ooh.
Rough guess. Any idea? Anybody?
Yeah, anybody. What do you guys
Rough
think?
guess?
This hole here, well, we can go back to the, let's see.
Ooh.
I'll make everybody crazy with flipping all these pictures. Now, if this is true, and these are supposed to be 5 feet,
I think they are, yeah.
there's 11 to here, so there's 55 feet. Yeah. Oh, I think they said 55 feet south of the garden shaft.
There you go.
Thank you, Ray.
Got to read the notes.
Yeah, read the notes.
So 55 feet south of the garden shaft, and we're 103 feet down in the ground.
54 feet. Yeah, I was pretty good then. I was close,
Yep.
wasn't I? Yeah, 50. Jan
Yep.
said, read my notes, 54
Yeah,
feet.
that's what I said. Read the notes. So if we're 103 feet underground, and if the garden shaft is supposed to bottom out at 77 feet, then
That's 30
instead of
feet?
the offset chamber going up, it goes down, because we're almost 30 feet below
Yeah,
horizontally from where this garden shaft is supposed to bottom out.
right. Well, and thinking that maybe the garden shaft was put into 70, some 80 feet, and then they went over and they were trying to, and again, if that was a searcher shaft that was put in and not the original money pit, the garden shaft, then they were going down and then they were going to tunnel over to try to get a tunnel, hit a tunnel or hit the money pit.
Mhm.
So if they were doing that, then they would hit the tunnel, and then where they go from that tunnel, some of these boreholes that they were putting in D17, they hit something at 55 feet. So, I mean, does that mean that if this is the deep shaft at 103 roughly, then did they go off to the offset goes this way over here? I don't know.
Or that's the original tunnel at the bottom, and the offset chamber comes up from that.
Right.
And that's why if the garden shaft is a recovery shaft, it doesn't have to be 103 feet deep. It only has to be 70 feet deep or 50 feet deep, because if it's an offset chamber, from what they're looking at now with the camera, it's going to be much higher. It's going to go up. Right.
Or this. The garden shaft goes deeper than they think.
If the garden shaft is what some people refer to as shaft 12, the original shaft 12 went down 123 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on whether you believe that the shaft 12 is the garden shaft, or shaft 12 was a little bit outside of where they show the garden shaft now.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean that the one, I think they, like they said, did say D17 was like 55, but like you were saying, if it's going uphill and it's going uphill to 70 feet, they got to go 30. They got to go up 30 feet in 55 feet.
Yep. So half a foot.
That's pretty steep.
It's pretty steep. But again, if you're climbing it, you know, depending on who's putting it in,
right,
the angle may not matter.
Right, hauling those chests of gold and silver and all that stuff.
Now back to your original comment, where they hit things at 55 feet, right? From the original shaft 12, they ran tunnels at an angle from 55 feet towards the surface to try and intercept or bypass various tunnels or flood tunnels.
Right.
So that could be something, a remnant of the original shaft 12.
It could be. Boy, I just, there's so many, even though we're getting some answers, we're seeing all this stuff. It's just, there's so many more questions. I mean, it's just, my goodness, it's
well, they've got that tunnel down there now. They have something
tangible,
concrete or wooden that they can follow.
Yep.
Right. It's not a guess from the surface. Right. It's not, well, maybe this is old wood that fell in, or old wood did this, or old wood did. This is an actual tunnel they can follow.
Mm-hmm.
And they know it is because they can see it.
Exactly. Richard, yeah, it could be a flood tunnel. And again, we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. Richard, was the fact that going the other direction, that the notes that, if we're going to get to that, we need to speed along here. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this because it's so darn cool, but the other direction of that tunnel going the other way goes to where? It goes to the South Shore.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it points right to that. We always see in that picture, the overhead picture, we see like that little circle pond or whatever, that little circle that's down there.
Like a sinkhole down there, yeah.
Like a sinkhole, but that was actually, I think, something that Dan Blankenship had going on.
I think it was. Yeah.
Somebody remind me what that was. I think Linda was telling us, but I think Dan Blankenship. Anyway, but you go down that direction and you're heading right for the ocean. Right. So, I mean, is that the tunnel that was allowing water in? Was that a flood tunnel? It could be, but still you have to get into it. You have to follow it like they're doing. You really do. You can't stop now and go back on that. Yeah. Yep. So anyway, all right, let's move along. I could spend all day on this part of it because it's so darn interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Dave said he found something very interesting down there in that South Shore pit, but I don't know exactly what that was. I don't remember. In other words, I don't remember exactly what it was. Or was it the secret entrance from the South Shore? Jim, you could be right. All right. I mean, this is just too cool. This following the whole tunnel thing with Dumas and the sonar and the cameras. I mean, I'm just so fascinated by this part. Obviously, you can tell. All right, let's jump over to the war room. Now we get
to the war room.
Yeah, we jump into the bits and pieces of the war room and the meeting they had with Corjan. You guys have seen Corjan's been on the show a few times with us. He was actually going to be here tonight. We had him all lined up for tonight, and then he got. Well, we can't really say too much. He got called away.
No longer available.
Yeah, he got called away, and we can't really talk about how or why or where, but he got called away on important business, and he is unavailable for tonight. That's why he's not here. He will make an appearance with us. He
will come back, yes.
We've been teasing him heavily. I think Linda's been teasing him pretty heavily about it. But he will be with us at some point. But anyway, Corjan was there, and also a fellow
Charlotte
researcher.
Wheatley.
Yep. Charlotte Wheatley. Now, they working together. Now, remember we mentioned a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the teams, or Rick had said, talking about his teams that he has abroad working on different things. And he mentioned right during the show last night, that this was his French team. So you got Corjan and Charlotte are part of the French team that's working on digging up information. So you have to have this. I mean, we talked about this research before. Yeah, a guy can, or a woman, a person can spend a lot of time on the internet, and you can research as much as you can get from the internet. But at some point, you've got to get, as Rick would say, boots on the ground, go into libraries, go into temples, go into, Templar places, or at Portugal and things like that. You have to research on the ground to tie those things together, or as Gretchen did, taking them down into Royston Cave to look at some of the things there. You have to have boots on the ground. You're not going to get answers just from looking on the internet.
And these folks are going and they're looking at, either the original documents or images of the original documents, right? Exactly. So they're not reading something that's been subject to someone else's interpretation.
Exactly. Very good point. So they get talking about Duc D'Anville. Now, this story, if you haven't read and heard about this story, they did kind of give us a good summary of it last night. It was a brief summary that Corjan was talking about. But I think it was like in June of 1745, the fortress of Louisburg
fell into the hands of the English. And that really made the French mad because they had built this great fortress right there in a nice place and very well defended and everything it was, but it fell to the English. In 1746, the French formed a large armada to sail to the Atlantic coast of Canada and retake Nova Scotia back from
Yep.
the English. And this expedition was led by Duc D'Anville, who was a member of the Rochefoucauld's. But this mission failed. Now,
Yeah, that thing was doomed. That whole mission was doomed from the start, right? Like bad weather, didn't get very far, ran out of food, had to resupply.
Yep.
Like it was just one, catastrophe after another. When they got there, they were so beat up they couldn't do much anyway.
Yeah, it truly was. But some of the things that I was reading about this, and here's a nice little write-up that I found on the internet of all places about this, and it talks about according to during the winter and spring of the year an expedition was illy formed, consisted of 70 vessels, among which were 7 ships in the line of 30 frigates and 30 transport carrying 3,000 soldiers. And can you imagine 70 vessels, frigates and transport and 3,000 people. I mean, they was bringing over a lot of men and ships, and they were serious about retaking this. And as Tom mentioned, how it was ill-fated from the very get-go, as the fleet barely got clear of the French coast when they encountered westerly gales, which so retarded the progress that it did not reach Sable Island until early September. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, talking about all the misfortunes of this thing.
Yep.
And you heard Corjan say, what did they gain by all this? And he said nothing. They gained nothing from all of this expense and everything that was put out.
Mm-hmm.
They gained absolutely nothing. Let's see. In 2017, Doug Crowell found part of the ship's log in the provincial archives that a second mission was carried out south of Halifax and was successful. The log mentions the treasure was buried in a deep pit with a secret entrance from the shore. Corjan tells the group that before the Armada was dispatched, 2 ships were sent ahead. The ships were, and I'm going to, the Leator, Aurore, and the Castor were sent over by orders of King Louis XV.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these did make it. They had a crew of 250 men on the one ship and 180 on another. The ships arrived on June 4th, 1746, near Mahone Bay, but there was no documentation of what the crew's mission was. That's talks about those loopholes and the hiding of information that we kind of talked about earlier.
Yeah, and the French weren't the only ones to do that, right? Like I've done back and done a little bit of reading. The British would do that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like back in, I forget the exact date now. I had it here somewhere. It was in the mid 17. I actually had here 1752. The British government brought over Cornish miners to Annapolis, Port Royal, whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They left them here for 2 years, came back and got them, and no one ever said where they went or what they did.
Yeah,
and it was all right around that, that same time frame, right? So they did run secret, sort of off the books missions.
Yeah. Now, would that be because if the ship was taken, like we saw those ship's logs, that they talked about a couple weeks ago. Now, if a ship was taken and those records were seized by the enemy, then the enemy would know exactly what you were doing there, right? Maybe is that
Exactly.
the omissions, or what do you think? I mean, I don't know. I think of a lot of good reasons, but
could be. And even when he didn't turn in all the information or complete all the information when they went back and refused to provide a complete ship's log, right?
Yep.
Well, it's probably a need to know thing, and whoever he was giving the information to didn't need to know. So he just said, basically, you're not getting it. I'm going to give you my navigation. What do you say? Navigation log or navigation charts or whatever.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're not getting anything.
Isn't that something? I mean, it just, yeah, they were covering up a lot of stuff there.
What if you got the king back and I guess you can get away with it, right?
Yeah. What if the primary mission was to recover the treasure and not recapture Louisbourg and the control of Nova Scotia? Could be.
Could be, because there was rumor that before the first British siege, that they took a lot of treasure out of there and hid it somewhere.
Yep.
Which is part of what I think Doug was talking about too originally.
Did they keep a journal? I think some may have, but again, that's one of those things where you don't want that to fall into enemy hands.
Yeah, the other thing too is, and Jeff Babineau made a great point a few weeks ago, is that the officers would have the ability, they would have the education and training to write journals. However, the common everyday guy in the Army probably was not educated enough to even write a note home or keep any sort of a diary or log. So with like the ship's log or an incomplete ship's log, you're not going to find much out.
Yeah, exactly right. Sharon asked if I could bring this up larger. The reason I grabbed this was because of her. That's that according to what Gretchen was saying, is that mermaid or that was on that they saw in Royston Cave. It was part of the Rochefoucauld's sigil or coat of arms or whatever. And that's why I brought that up. This was what they showed on there, and that was the Duc D'Anville, and this is the coat of arms for them. So that's why I brought, and the crown above the head, and that you see in that crown and that carving on the cave of Royston Cave, that mermaid there. So is that her? Yeah. And this was where Doug was originally back in 2017 was talking about the transcribed, translated document that he had talking about Duc D'Anville and making landfall and coming in from the ocean and digging into a deep pit and hiding treasure. And there's his name right there.
And you can see, look at the top of that page there. You can see where it's a translated document, but it looks like it's out of the archives.
Yeah.
See where it's been referenced and dated.
Yep.
So to me, that's somebody's translation of an original document. Of course, if it's a French captain's document, it'd be written in French, right? That's written in English.
Right. Now, this is the one that Corjan was talking about right here. And he pulled up some really cool stuff in here. He's talking about the two ships. Right here. Here's the name of the two ships. Tourer and the Lancaster. So Duc D'Anville. Destination particular, yeah. Yep. A particular destination, but yet would not talk about where it was.
Well, didn't they say that they weren't going to say any destination in particular, right?
Right.
They weren't going to admit to any destination in particular.
Right. Exactly. Exactly right. And it talks about that in here a little bit too. Let's see. Corjan tells the team that, Duvino leaves holes in his logbook, and these holes get bigger and bigger. The ships were in the area for 2 months, and no activity was documented in the logbooks. When they did return to France, the captain submitted the journals for storage in the records. And he puts in a letter with the submission and states, "I will not speak to anyone about this place, but I am obliged to send my journals for navigation. So many things, and here's talking about how many people were taken, 250 over there, and 180 on that ship.
And those are supposedly over and above what the normal crew would be.
Yes.
So why do you need that kind of manpower? What were you up to?
Right.
But did they say, they didn't say, did they, what what the type of manpower? Were they soldiers? Were they laborers? Were they miners?
It was not conveyed what it was.
No.
No, it didn't say on here if they were. It just says, well, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't read
Anyway,
French.
I don't think they mentioned on the show. They just said 250 men. That's what it says there.
Yep. A lot of manpower. Absolutely.
Yeah, extra men. Yeah.
Oh, somebody had to. Oh, that was Marilyn. See you later, Marilyn. Appreciate you coming by. Anyway, so yeah, will not speak about it. So, I mean, again, D'Anville comes up over and over and over again. This whole notion with the Duke being there and the things that they did and they kept secret and they, and the fact that they were there in the mid 1700s is just crazy.
They had built the biggest military structure in North America at the time in Lewisburg, right? They were setting up shop. They weren't leaving. They were investing in it. They weren't leaving.
Right.
And the British were saying, yeah, you're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And they put this Lewisburg under siege twice. And finally, the French were forced out. But in the meantime, they were pouring a lot of resources into this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to build a fortress like that. Just, if you're not planning on staying, you're going to be entrenched there. You're going to make this your extension of your country, over in a foreign land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. You're there to stay. And then when they lost it to the English, they were mad. They wanted it back, and they sent this fleet, and it just fell apart.
And I see the Oaken one there says the problem with the Duke's theory is being responsible for Oak Island is, when you talk about the Knights Templar and Portuguese, Francis Bacon, and the others. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that because the French could very easily be using knowledge that was passed down from the Templars, from Bacon, from whoever. Here's a great spot to go hide something.
Right.
I've always been a believer that there's been multiple people there for multiple reasons over centuries.
Yep.
So the fact that the French were there doesn't, to me, knock other theories out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
The other theories are still possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with that. I do. I mean, it's, we know, like I said earlier in the show, and hi, Deidre, by the way, I'm glad you're here. Deidre with D&D. Could It Be Oak Island podcast? They, with the fact that we know that there was samples of things found that were built on the island, like that platform. Again, I go back to that, built in around that piece of wood dated around 1200, 1220. We know that there was extensive work going on there. Who was doing all that work and why? Was that the Templars? Were they the ones doing all that? And then that knowledge would be passed down that something's going on over there. And these people would pick it up through Sir Francis Bacon and all that, maybe. And they would be able to know that maybe they say, hey, we left behind something over there that we need to go back and get it. So the remnants, the people that, as the Templars broke up, again, I'm speculating, but who knows? All that information was passed along. And so it's quite possible that as Tom just said, and as we kind of speculate about, that there have been multiple different peoples there over the course from 1200s or whatever, all the way through to the 1700s and beyond.
Yeah.
So
this could be the 103-foot portion of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right. Because we know that there was wood and artifacts brought up from 160, 170, 180.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just because they found a tunnel at 103 feet doesn't mean it's the only valid tunnel on the island. Right. But there is a story for this one particular tunnel to tell, and it may not be related at all to things that are deeper.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right.
Right. That's just one. That's what that tunnel is. One story, I guess, as Rick would say.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true. It's I don't know. And they could have come back, like we talked about. Somebody could have been back in the early 1700s or the mid 1700s and gone back in and took out everything. And there was nothing to find later on. I don't know. Yep. But again, if that's the case, then why are they still getting good, heavy quantities of gold and silver in the water?
Exactly.
Something has to still be down there to be putting that in the water. So to round the show out, and then we'll just kind of talk with the chat a little bit. I want to hear what you guys think about what the show, what they talked about on the show. But to round it out at the end there, they go back over to the research center. Carmen Legge shows up. There's our friend Carmen, pops in.
Mhm.
Love this guy. Comes in, and Jack is going to show him some of the things that they found. And one was that he said at first he thought that was a tool, but it's not. That was that one piece that they found. And he actually said it was part of a barrel, part of a barrel to hold a barrel closed. And he was talking about a larger barrel or something heavy, more heavy duty that would need a band or a strap like that. So, or doubling up the strap. It had like the metal, the wider, thin metal, and then also a heavy, like a
Was that the one that he thought was from a what do you call it, a wet barrel?
Yes. Well, no, this one.
Or was that the other one? That was the other one. That was the other one.
Yeah, that was this one. And he talked about how it was curved. You see how it was bent, and he says in there, about it being a large keg, like a whiskey barrel, a 200-gallon. I mean, he was starting to show how big this thing was based upon its curve. And if you follow that curve around, how big would this be? Yeah, thanks, Ray. A 200-gallon wet barrel. And he said something about it being whiskey. Yeah, exactly. So, and then we talk about it, and Jack was like, well, why would that be something that would be here? Or would this be on a ship or a military? And he said, oh yeah, military. Well, now, when you're talking about how many men came over in those ships, you're going to need a lot of whiskey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. It makes total sense that they would have a big wet barrel full of some sort of, libation for the troops that you're bringing over. And you're bringing over 200 on one ship and 100 or 250 on one ship and 200 or 180 on another. That's a lot of people to keep happy.
I wonder how big a barrel they would have made sauerkraut in for cabbage.
Ooh, yeah, right. That's a good.
I don't know. I have no idea. I just popped into my head.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we're right there on lot 32, right next to Samuel Ball. We're next to that space that they're saying was 100 feet by 150 feet.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been to me a small cabbage patch or something like that.
Yeah.
Could it be, something from a food like a sauerkraut or something like that? Or could have been a water barrel. I mean, they had to drink water. They had to bring water with them when they traveled, right?
Yep. Oh, they did. They had to have water on the ship. Yeah, exactly.
If you had 250 extra people on there,
yeah,
on a ship, that's a lot of water.
It is a lot of water. Absolutely, it is. And here we are again. And there was Craig was smiling at the whole thing about 200 gallons of whiskey. But look at the dates. 1740s, 1760s. Again, right back in that same time frame, the middle 1700s.
Yeah, well, it didn't have Murray Vineyard stamped on the side of it.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, that's what I was gonna show. And I loved when he was leaving. He said, "I had a barrel of fun." Carmen, you gotta love Carmen. I mean, he throws a good joke.
Great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to meet him in person. I met him on the show.
Spent half a day with him. Yeah, great guy.
To meet him in person. Yeah, that's awesome. So, and I was going to show too, real quick, but I wanted to hear from all of you guys. Let's see. Here's some more comments coming up about.
Rum was a big thing for the Navy when they were running up and down the Atlantic seaboard down into Jamaica and those places. Rum was the big thing going up and down the coast. What would have been made in Europe and brought over here, I don't know whether it had been rum or whiskey or even wine.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, when I was in the Navy, my ship, we had a crew of about 400 and some, and we took on 800 Marines. Okay. So figure about, 1,200 people on my ship, and we pulled into port somewhere, and we usually pulled in with other ships. There was a lot of alcohol consumed when we got into port somewhere. because you spend that much time out at sea, and we didn't spend months like they did. You spend that much time out at sea. You want to get off that ship and go have some fun. So yeah, so 250 drunken sailors, that's nothing. That's a pure pittance. I say 1,200 drunken sailors. There you go. I don't think water was as safe as beer.
Yeah, it's probably right.
Oh yeah. So there you go. So I wanted to show another picture. If I can find it here. This was we're talking about these barrels, right?
Mhm.
Let's see if hopefully it won't take me too long to find this.
I can tell you when Carmen talks about barrels, he knows of what he speaks, because one of the places he took us through down at Ross Farms was actually where they make the barrels. So he's an expert in that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah, he is. Yeah, and I saw those pictures that you showed. Oh, I didn't get any stills of this. These were I was looking at some of the pictures that I had taken when I was at Murray Vineyards about these barrels, and they are absolutely monstrous size. Some of them, and the bands that are on them. But these are all videos, and I didn't know if.
Really gracious as far as
Hold on.
taking it down and moving it.
Oh, absolutely. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to pull this over here, and then I'm going to bring this up, and I got a still photo here. Okay. Tell me about a 200-gallon barrel.
I'd say there's more than 200 in one of those things.
Yeah, you're talking 500. Well, they're not as.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, look how tall they are. They're what, 6 feet tall?
Mm-hmm. Well,
5 or
they're
6
not
feet
quite as
tall?
tall. Yeah, they were about 6 feet. Yes, actually, yes, they were. Yeah, because I stood up next to one of them, and
I would
even though it's off the ground, about a foot off the ground, but they were
Yeah.
as tall as I am, and I'm 6 foot tall. So
Now, depending on how deep they are, I'd say you're probably looking at 500 gallons in there.
yeah. So yeah, so a 200-gallon barrel really isn't all that big. I mean, you see the ones down in the end down here, and I don't know how big those are. I mean, gallon wise, I never did
50
ask.
gallons. Probably
And
only
this was
small one
Andy.
like that.
Yeah, this was Andy that took me on a tour down all over Murray Vineyards over in Traverse City, Michigan. And this was awesome. I got a little video if you guys want to check it out. It's on the YouTube channel here. You can check that out. It was an awesome tour. It took me through the whole winemaking process, but those barrels are awesome. Absolutely awesome. But there's that metal banding on them that they keep finding.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I wanted to throw a few questions out there. What's this here? When I was in the Navy, we had 5,000 crew members, and it was an aircraft carrier.
Aircraft
Yeah,
carrier.
as an aircraft carrier was a floating city. I mean, that was a major city all on its own. So, what do you guys think of this tunnel down there? What do you think of the tunnel that's down below the money pit? That they do you think it's a flood tunnel? Do you think it's a searcher tunnel? Do you think it's a original? What is Rick? I use the term deposition.
Depositor. Yeah, depositor
Depositor
activity.
tunnel? What do you think? What do you think this is that they are following? And is this tunnel? Is it going to lead them to what they need to find? What do you guys think in the chat? I'm curious to see what everybody thinks. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Ray, I appreciate Ray talking about being on an aircraft carrier. I wasn't on anything that big, but yeah, we were on 1,200. Our job was to get the Marines to the beach. So we did our best, to get the Marines to the beach. That was the job of my ship. Let's see. Secret access tunnel to the South Shore.
Who do you think put the tunnel there?
Yeah, and who do you think put it there? Depositor tunnel. Who put this in there? Let's see.
Which depositor though?
Yeah. In what era? Let's see. Who said that? Let's see. Depositor. That was April. April said a depositor
If the
tunnel.
tunnel was built in the 1700s, it's going to be British or French. Would be my.
Man, the chat's flying by now. I can hardly keep up with it. Let's see.
Could be original.
I think it's a depositor tunnel, and it will take them to the big deposit. Cool. You might be right, Keith. You said the tunnel from South Shore led to the treasure, so that's true. That would work. Yeah, if it's it could be. I mean, like I said, that what Doug found, it talked about a tunnel leading from the shore into a deep pit. So if that's heading towards South Shore, maybe that's where it comes in. Maybe it doesn't even go from. Maybe the flood tunnels were what came from Smith's Cove only, and the actual access tunnel came from the South Shore. I don't know.
And I see John Edwards thinks it's a searcher tunnel, but was it? So is your definition of searcher anybody that was just digging underground trying to find a treasure, or was it somebody who actually knew where the treasure was and going to recover it? What's your definition of searcher? To me, a searcher is someone that says, "Oh, I think I know where there's a treasure. Let's go look for it."
Let's see who said this.
As opposed to someone who's going to make a withdrawal from the bank.
Right. That was Jeff. Jeff Babineau said this right here. Keep testing the water. The higher concentration, the closer presumably to the source. Is that the case? I think so. I mean, that would make sense to me.
It would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, that's why they were trying to follow the water, follow the testing of the water to the source. And they test every one of these holes now. They test them every time they punch them in there. If it's anything but searcher, it'll lead to the money pit, as a flood tunnel needs to come near it. John, yeah. So the French put it there. Oh.
So John says a searcher is anyone trying to recover the treasure after 1795.
Well, John, what if it's possible that somebody came on later searching for it to take the money out and then left everything? Of course, they wouldn't bother leaving a hole in the ground. They obviously filled it back in and covered their tracks, maybe for future use or something. But if somebody came and took the money out or the treasure out, but then again, we got this. We go back. I go back to the content of the water. Having the gold content in the water. Would there still be gold content in the water if they took it out in the mid 1700s? Probably not. Yes. Kat brings up the square box at the end of the tunnel shown by the ground penetrations. Yeah, that was showed a chamber. That was the tunneling that looked like it was maybe natural tunneling that was leading from Smith's Cove to the money pit, and then at the end of it there was like a 12 by 12 chamber at the end of it, according to this. That was the seismic data that was ran through new software a few years later. Let's see, what's this one? Jan says, so do you think that the tunnel is only going off in one direction? If it is, then it would be a searcher shaft. If there's another tunnel heading towards the beach, maybe depositor. Yep. They're
get something out there that's going to tell them, right? That's the secret to knowing that they've got an original tunnel. It's not a bunch of mishmash timbers or cross tunnels or collapses. Or this is an original tunnel. They should be able to find some original stuff.
Yep. Withdraw tunnel. And Jenny says, given the length of the tunnel, it wasn't what they called searchers. Not heard of anything of searcher tunnels that long, though it could be depositor or someone with a knowledge of depositors. Yeah.
Oh, I see Linda's note there that a 200-gallon, I guess she's talking about a barrel, would be, I'm going to say 36 inches across in diameter and 56 inches high. So 60 inches is 6 feet, or 5 feet. So
yeah.
So
actually, I'm going to have to ask Andy what the size of those you know, or how many gallons. And he probably says in the video, I should go back and listen to it. He probably does say it right in the video that I recorded, how many gallons those are. I'm sure he did, because he was explaining everything so well to me as we were going through there. Yeah, I kind of do too. That was Henry said that. I kind of hope it does too. I hope that Marty's idea of the offset chamber is true. But as somebody pointed out, if it is, and it's up above the water level, so it's safe now, then how are they getting the content of gold and silver in the water? So it has to be underwater now. And if they punched holes in it and they breached it, then it probably does have water in it now.
And it could be one of those chambers too that I remember back in the day they talked about having discovered things much deeper than 100 feet, of course, but they thought that were waterproof vaults with the mud, the clay, the lead, you know, the encasing them, right? So if somehow at some point it got punctured by a drill. I mean, they've only been drilling down there for like 200 years, so.
Yeah, exactly. And how many holes did they put in just, 400 in just a season, a couple seasons?
Yeah.
Put in
I mean, it was drill bits that brought up pieces of parchment and supposed gold flakes and everything else, right? So
yep. They did find that. Yeah, we have to go where the evidence leads. Exactly right. Yeah.
And right now, Dave, the evidence leads follow that tunnel.
Yes, there was. John mentioned a mining lease. Yes, there was. And matter of fact, I looked at a picture of it earlier today. There was a mining lease. Now, we were talking about this a little bit and mentioning that if there was a mining lease, would it be simply that they had to use that? They had to get that in order to be able to do any kind of
They had to get the mining lease so that they could keep any gold or bullion that they recovered. That's the reason the mining lease was obtained, is what my reading has shown me.
Right. And I did have.
That's why they had to get a mining license and lease for that whole section down there. It was a legal technicality at the time. Hard to believe, but
yeah. But we did see that, and we were talking about why there would be a mining lease.
Yeah, that's why it was done, as far as I know.
Yeah, here it is right here. I just found it.
Yep.
So a mining lease was done, and right there in the money pit.
And that was so that they could recover any precious metals, that they keep any precious metals that they found.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I forget what the date of that is now too. So, yeah, good stuff. Wow. Man, a lot of good chat here tonight, guys. You guys have got you got it well covered. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. We're at about an hour and a half, and I tell you what, this is. Somebody told me, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he says, the show is going to be, talking about the show not being all that great this year, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I think this show has been great so far. What do you guys think? Are you enjoying this season 10 of The Curse of Oak Island? Tell me what you think. I'm enjoying it. I think it's so cool. They know they've got the content of gold in the water, and now they are finding ways to get boots underground to go look at this. And they're we saw all the pictures over the summer months. We know that they were down there. We know that they were pulling the muck and everything out of there. I think this is, yes, Deidre, I think this has been a great season so far. I really do. The latter part of season 9 was kind of kind of ho-hum. But I think so far this season has been fantastic, and I cannot wait to see. And also, I'm looking forward to seeing the thing that, remember when Maddie opened up that little white box and he was like, and he couldn't show us. We talked about it when we had him on the show for the season opener. And he said, you'll know it when you see this item, you're going to know that was what was in the box, and you're going to send me a message, and I'll tell you whether or not you were right. So I'm waiting for them to find.
What if that's the one that they showed us in the preview for next week? That looked like that little lead piece that they had there.
Maybe. Is that or what's the one that we saw on they hinted to it in the season opener about that, what had the little blue stones in it?
Oh, could be. Yep.
That's what I was kind of thinking. Maybe it's that. had the little blue stones in it, and we don't know what those are. You know, if those glass, are they sapphires or what's sapphires are blue, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? So I think this has been a great season. I can't wait for it to go a much, get deeper into this. Now we know that. How long did the Dumas guys say that they were going to take to get down to the 70 feet? 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks is what they said last night.
And we know they started in June.
Yep. Initially, it was supposed to be they were going to go down something like 55 days initially.
Yeah.
But, we know they were there for 150 days or 140 days. So
yeah,
they kept themselves busy doing something.
Yeah. And plus all the other stuff. And that's what's so cool about it. Now you've got these guys are taking care of what's happening in the money pit. They're drilling. I mean, they're tunneling, they're gunting down there, putting the shaft in, rebuilding rehabbing the shaft and going down in there. You got the guys taking drilling and following a tunnel and getting pictures down there. They're getting sonar down there. And then you also have the rest of this. We haven't even got to lot 5 yet, folks. They haven't at this point in the show, they haven't even purchased lot 5 yet. So we still have all of the things they're going to find on lot 5 to talk about. I mean, this is going to be a great season. Whether or not they found the Ark of the Covenant or the gold or the whatever that's down there, we don't know yet. But I mean, so far, I agree. Everybody's jumping in saying it's been a great season, and I think so too. So far,
it's only going to get better.
Yeah, we're only at episode 5, so I think so. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up, folks. Thanks so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. With the more likes we get, the better that YouTube will put this show out everywhere. So please, we got 118 people watching. Everybody hit that subscribe or like button, if you would, please. If you like the content of the show. If you didn't like it, then I understand. You can hit the thumbs down, I guess, or whatever. But I really, it does help a lot when they do that to get that out there. Oh, Keith just joined. All right, cool. Appreciate that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So that's oh yeah, true. But anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. We really do appreciate it. And if you want to help support the show, we do have a Patreon channel. It's at Patreon. It's spelled Patroen or EON, patreon.com, EON. And of course, JFree906 out there if you want to help support the show. We really appreciate that a lot. We will catch you next week here. I do not have a show tomorrow night. I am actually packing everything up and I'm heading to a new location over the weekend. So I'm heading out of town. And so no show tomorrow night. But next week we'll be back and raring to go. We'll be definitely here on Wednesday night, 7:30 for episode number 6. Do we know what the name of it is yet? I don't know the name of it.
I don't know. Linda would know. Linda, quick.
Linda would know. Linda knows the
quick.
name of all of them. All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Tom, as always, thank you so much for co-hosting. Okay. Appreciate you very much.
Hopefully I didn't cough into my mic too much here. So
no, you did actually. You did great. A lot of cough drops, I guess, right? All right, folks. Catch you next week right here in the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream and JFree906. Good night.
Good night.